Hello everyone, I'm Ollie, CEO of London United. Welcome to the second part of our Yop Esports Champs public speaking workshop, where I'm delighted to have Tass from FaZe Clan here to impart his knowledge upon the participants, and London United's ambassador Rambo, who is going to take us through the session. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Rambo.
Thank you very much, Ollie. Tass, good to have you here. I'm going to ask you something straight off the bat, nice and easy. How do you feel about Arsenal's current form?
We're really going there. No hello, no nothing. Straight to Arsenal. I'm
messing. I'm messing.
Oh, okay. I was ready to hit you with like a 7-paragraph answer there, but never mind.
I'm sure if people just follow you on Twitter, they're going to get a pretty solid idea of what's going through your mind when it comes to Arsenal.
Yeah.
I thought a nice place to start is probably if you tell us a bit more about how you got into this, what your journey was, and what it's like basically being who you are now.
Yeah. So basically, Rambo, my journey's a bit of a unique one. I kind of come from, I like to think, a different era, an era where when you wanted to become a professional video game player in whatever video game you thought you were decent at, it was a lot more closed off, a lot more, you don't really know if this is a career. I'd say a lot harder. So my situation was, it's a very, very interesting story considering or comparing it to like somebody now wanting to get into gaming or professional video games. I feel like a lot of doors are open. It's very, I don't know how to put it, very obvious what you need to do. There's kind of like, it's video games and doing them professionally, whether it's, you know, convincing your parents that you should do it, or whether it's what do I need to do, where do I need to go, what website do I need to play on, et cetera, to get better. I feel like now compared to, that would be about 8-9 years ago when I did, it was a lot different. So, I don't know if you want me to ramble on about how mine was.
Well, I'm actually more keen to know, like, because of what you just said, how did you convince your parents, and where did you start? Because obviously it was different, as you said, 8 years ago. You couldn't just go, I like playing FIFA, I'm gonna play FIFA permanently. Like, and surely you didn't wake up and your mum just said, "Yeah, son, go be a FIFA player." That didn't happen. I know it didn't happen.
No, my parents were obviously, like most parents, keen on education and stuff like that. But also around the time, so my first ever competitive event was 2012. So to kind of think back to 2012, there wasn't like a landscape going on where it's like I could use examples to my parents of like, oh, look, da-da-da is doing it, da-da-da being somebody who's successful at it or whatever. I didn't have examples. I think it's the same if you want to be a YouTuber now, there's examples, many. So the same for becoming a professional FIFA player at the time. I couldn't really convince my mom and dad, like, this guy's done it before, and this is why I think I can do it. It was being kind of one of the first. So convincing your parents then compared to now, I think is a different ball game. I think it's a lot easier to convince your parents now, just simply because you can show them evidence, which could convince your parents. Whereas, back then it was a very funny, long, ongoing conversation about this interesting idea of pausing education for pursuing a video game.
How did that work though? Obviously you knew you were really good naturally, but back then the landscape of being really good was like, am I really good, or am I really good in my house or in my area? So how does that start where you just go, actually, you know what, I'm going to become professional?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I didn't actually know how good I really was. I knew I was all right, but the way I knew was back in about 2011, 2012, there was a website called Virgin Gaming, where it wasn't just for FIFA. I think it was some other sports games like Madden and stuff. And you would go on and you would actually essentially play for money. You would basically, like me and you would have a game for like $25. The winner wins, $25, the loser loses. And based off that, it was kind of one of them where you build up a reputation on the site. And with my online peers that I wasn't friends with, there wasn't really a friend community. It was just sort of a competitive community. People were telling me, you're really good. I think you're pretty good, blah, blah, blah. And there was just an advertisement at the time of Virgin Game 2012. There was like a $400,000 tournament in New York they were going to hold. And I kind of saw it and I was like, whoa, but it was an in-person thing. So I was like, wait, we can do this in person. It was very confusing to me at the time. And I qualified for it. And I told my parents that I qualified for it, but it was completely up to them whether we go or not. I mean, I'm 17 at the time. Obviously don't have much money to my name. So it was basically up to my dad and my mum on whether we ended up traveling out there. There was no sponsorships or anything. And off that tournament, it kind of just a chain reaction happened. And slowly but surely, we're here.
Yes. So, you know what's really interesting to me? I'm thinking if I'm a kid, if I'm, I don't know, 12, 13, to be fair, these days you can be a professional player at the age of 8 or 9. But if I'm a kid and I'm saying to my mom or dad, like, I've got to go to New York, how do you even instigate that conversation? How does that even become hey, let's go?
Well, they knew I was playing on a site for money at the time, and I was doing well off it. But in terms of using the quote "well off it," just for pocket change, well off it. And I didn't tell them that there was like a qualification for this huge prize pool tournament because I didn't know if I would qualify personally. And then when I did qualify, my peers were that I did speak to at the time. I wasn't really integrated into whatever the community was at the time. It was very small. I wasn't integrated in, but peers were telling me that you really do have a shot at winning it. So I was kind of not going off my own opinion of what I was. I was kind of going off what others thought. And I was like analyzing it all. And I was like, I think it's worth trying to convince my parents that we should probably spend a couple $1,000 or pounds or whatever to take this flight and this trip. And I think the way I convinced them was just simply, it's a one-off situation. So regardless of what happens, the worst thing that can happen from it is just we lost some money out of it. So fortunately, my parents were very open-minded about it, and yeah, they went along with it, and yeah, that's really it.
Shout out mum and dad, innit?
Nah, shout out mum and dad. They I think as the last couple of years have gone on, I've kind of thought about parents now, like a 15-year-old son saying to them, "Oh, dad or mum, I don't know, I maybe want to pause my A levels or something because I'm getting good at this video game and these opportunities are coming through, blah blah blah." And I look at how a parent can get convinced now, and it's very good. It's a lot easier to get convinced, not because you're tricking your parents. It's just the evidence at hand is there to be shown. Whereas, yeah, the era that I was from, to convince your parents, I think for parents to be open-minded, especially back then, is definitely shout out to any parent that was, because you're going in blind, basically. You're going in blind.
Yeah, and it worked out, which is why we're here now, which is how we've landed here. And obviously, this is all about public speaking. Obviously, over the years, because as you said, like FIFA and video gaming is such a sit in your room, or it definitely used to be, sit in your room and compete. And now it's like you go to events, and obviously you have to do a bit of talking. There's got to be dialogue, there's got to be interviews. It's like being a professional footballer. And so in terms of like confidence in speaking, do you feel like you always had that? Because for a lot of kids, that must be so daunting. Like sitting on a big stage, all these great FIFA players around, and then you also have to talk about it as well.
No, I'm with you, mate. I think when I came into the scene and I kind of saw how the majority of people were, they weren't, yeah, I agree. They weren't, it was a bit of a daunting task to be pushed in and having to be asked questions and answering them and have to come across in a certain type of way. But personally, I don't know what I would attribute mine to, but to answer your question, yes, I was always confident in interviews and public speaking. And I guess that would come from education and just in school, just simply thinking back, I don't know, when the teacher would off the top of their head just like point at you and you had to answer a question that was a bit awkward at the time in the classroom. I never really ever had a problem with it. And I also maybe would attribute some of it to doing English language in my A levels as well. So yeah, I'd probably attribute that to probably education, to be honest.
Yeah. And I guess over the years, like when you do this all the time, you just get better by practice. Like with anything, you just got to practice it and practice it and practice it.
Yeah.
I can say from my experience, I literally used to sit in front of the mirror and just talk to myself. Weird as it is, I used to sit there and go,
that's not that weird. I don't think it's that weird.
Really?
No, it's one of them. Like the natural reaction might be as a bit weird, but in terms of like your point of why you're doing it, like it is going to improve whatever the thing you're trying to improve. Doing it, that is definitely gonna do something. So yeah,
just practice. We're going to delve a little bit more into like you and your career, and the students at Conisbrough College asked this question right from the off, and I knew this would be a question. How did you get into the clan in the first place?
The clan, as in
the FaZe clan.
Ah,
yeah,
FaZe.
not the clan.
I was wondering what was going on. So yeah, I had so basically, in short, the span of the game FIFA competitively has been EA decided to come into their own video game, obviously, but support the competitive ecosystem in the summer of 2016. So heading into FIFA 17 was the first year that they decided to support the competitive scene. And yeah, the cycle of FIFA 17 happened. I done very well on it, and we headed into FIFA 18, and it was around the winter time of the cycle of FIFA 18 being out, and I was a free agent from the summer before, and yeah, I was just talking to multiple teams, etc., and during the winter, just in short, an opportunity popped up. I remember for the first time hearing about it, it was like oh my god, and it was FaZe Clan interested in FIFA, and yeah, they were interested in me, and yeah, that's kind of the very short gist of it. Around January 2018 officially is when I first joined them, so it's been a while. And yeah, for me, I personally, for as long as I've been in the scene, I've only represented 3 teams. So I've been here since 2012, and I've only personally represented 3 teams. However, I feel like even if I'd represented 30, I think I would come to the conclusion FaZe Clan, I think, is the cream of the crop from the aspect of not just maybe from a known standpoint, from just how they handle things that have got nothing to do with, you know, the FIFA side of it. Just everything else is just a smooth machine. So yeah, that's really kind of the boring story of it, I guess.
I was ready for some, like, I was on a flight to New York, someone sat next to me, FaZe Clan guys.
Nah, it was just sort of a online email thing, and just but I do remember the reaction for the first time reaction, which obviously you don't know, even if someone or something is interested, you don't know that it's actually going to pan out. But just the fact that it was a possibility, I remember the initial reaction. Just being someone who follows other video games, Call of Duty is a big favorite of mine competitively, and obviously knowing a FaZe from that and the YouTube side, it was just a oh my god moment. So yeah, that's really about it.
It's so interesting you mentioned an oh my god moment, because it links so well to another one of the questions from the students. Is in tournaments you must have a lot of these oh my god moments, for good and for bad. How does someone compose themselves for something like that? Because it's just like, when I just think of it out loud, I'm already thinking, oh my god, I've got to sit next to someone who might beat me, or I'm going to beat them. So how do you figure out your way around that, navigate your way around it?
Yeah, I'd say the first thing I think of is, depending on the environment you're playing in. And so obviously you're comfortable in your own chair in your room, or whatever a young man or whatever is playing in for years and years. When you go to a LAN environment, depending, I wouldn't even call all LAN environments the same. I'd say depending on the LAN environment, some can get very intimidating. And I'll be honest with you, experience does help. However, it's not the be all and end all. It's not one of them of, I've been to like multiple world championships, so like the next time I go to one, it's just calm and I just sit there with like no problems. No, it's not the case. But I think it would depend on the type of LAN. For example, sometimes a setup at a tournament cannot be that intimidating, if that makes sense. Meaning, I don't know, it could be in a room, a small room, or you could be secluded from other people. So it's kind of like you don't feel like everyone's watching you. Whereas like sometimes a world championship, that I think back at the most recent one I went to in 2019, I mean, half the players are playing up in the sky in the O2.
Yeah.
So like very, very intimidating. And I can only imagine for someone who, there were some amazing players that hadn't been to many tournaments at the time, what the feeling's like. Because even for myself, as someone who was competing for so long, even experiencing that environment again and a kind of a level up of an environment from an intimidation perspective, it is a bit intimidating. How you handle it, you kind of your confidence comes from your preparation, or even if it's not preparation, your belief in your ability. Not that you're lying to yourself, just knowing what level you're at. You cannot lie to yourself. You can lie to others, but you cannot lie to yourself. So if you're not confident in your ability, and you combine that with an intimidating environment, chances are it's going to overwhelm you. Chances are.
Yeah. And you said obviously the environments vary. And I feel like this hasn't happened with you. Oh, we've lost you. Oh, you're back.
Oh.
If this has ever happened, like stage fright, have you ever had stage fright? Or do you feel like that exists for someone like you?
Well, define stage fright for me. So what would happen? What would, for in a gaming sense, what would that be?
Well, you could either have it one of two things. One is obviously you said like you have like the O2 where they're playing in the sky, but there's sometimes where you sat in the middle of a stage where you can, like, if the whole world can see you. When you're at that stage, do you feel like your FIFA instinct is still on and you're just playing FIFA? Because it's completely different to just sit in your room, right?
No, you're right. I think it's one of them. One thing I did notice is it's kind of all the shenanigans and the waiting and everything that happens before and during your before your game. It's kind of like when the game starts, you can, as whatever somebody is going through mentally, it's one of them where like the game has started and your instincts do kind of kick in of what you need to do. Whereas like when you're sat there waiting for half an hour on that chair and people are looking at you and people are talking in your ear, do this, do that. They're probably the more intimidating moments than actually playing the game. When the game kicks off, I think it's kind of similar. Don't want to put us in that category, but I've heard athletes talk about the same as like in basketball, when the ball's tipped up, everything just kicks in. Like however nervous you are, could be a game 7, could be the last game of the season for the championship. The before is kind of scarier than when that second the game actually starts. So yeah, I think it's just all the shenanigans that happen before it, but the actual act you're doing, you're very confident in. So yeah.
I think the fascinating side of esports and tournaments and competitive gaming that I find is the shenanigans, because like in my head I'm like, I would love for this to become like boxing, where you have like actual beef all the time, but there's obviously a lot of respect.
Yeah, I mean, some esports to others have more beef. I mean, FIFA, there are some I mean, over the years I've always counted Call of Duty as quite a I don't know, aggressive esport in terms of when they're playing at LAN. There's a lot of back and forth talking, whereas FIFA's sort of, I don't know, when two people are playing, even if they are within a vicinity of one another, I don't remember the last time I've heard, like, I don't know, somebody scores a goal, and let's say it's a good goal, it's an important goal. Of course, the guy's screaming and doing stuff, but I don't remember ever the guy sort of atting the opponent, whether it's like you're not very good or stuff like that. Doesn't really happen in FIFA. Maybe, I think because it's a 1v1 esport, maybe the fact that some of these others are team oriented creates confidence to maybe get up and stare at the opponent a little bit more. But in FIFA, it's more, there's still some situations. I mean, I've personally had some over the years, so it happens, but I think it's a bit more mellow than some of the others.
Yeah. Obviously, because you have all these interviews going around it, and what I meant by the boxing thing is, I feel like over the years it might develop into that, as in like where in interviews and things you talk about the next person you're playing, and like you talk it up, but from your perspective at the moment, you don't do that. But have you had any media training to allow you to do these interviews as smoothly as you do?
No. Personally, no. I think from an aspect of just speaking for others, I would say no. It's one of them where you kind of get thrusted into it because you mandatorily need to do it. And I think everyone's just natural instinct kicks in of how they want to do it, or how they should approach it, or whether they come across, however they come across. Yeah, I don't really think there's any tips. Maybe when you go home, your mum or dad might say something to you, but other than that, professional training, no, not really, no.
Yeah. I love this question. It's from the college again. Because as soon as I read it, I was like, I normally get asked this question, so it's good for me to be able to ask someone else. How do you pay any attention to saying So you know when you're talking, both of us are saying quite a lot. Do you feel like it's a normal thing now, or do you think it's just like...
You know what's funny about that? Actually, what was I was watching one of my favorite there we go. Who was it? I don't know if it was Stephen A. It was somebody in the media industry, and they were saying it a lot. And it was one of them, even myself, I was picking up on it. I was like, please don't say it again. Please don't say it again. But I don't, to you saying that, I actually haven't sat here, for example, for the last 10, 15 minutes that we've been speaking and actually thought in my head, have I been saying it a lot? So it does not pop into my head. It probably should, I think, but no, it's not.
Because I can picture a young kid in their head, like it's something that I've always thought as well. Like, am I saying too much? But
Okay.
I can picture a little kid going, "Oh my god, I'm going to make loads of content, and I don't want to keep saying because when I talk, I say But I've just done it there. Actually,
looking at it from that aspect, not in an interview aspect, but in terms of like, I don't know, making a YouTube video or something, I would have to go back and check, but I would assume off the top of my head, I would go in the category of someone who doesn't say too much. However, I think in this interview, I have said it way too much. But in terms of actually thinking about my YouTube content over the last couple of years, I think I would fall in the category of somebody who doesn't spam it too much. But yeah, I don't know.
In terms of content, do you have any tips for producing content?
One tip and one tip only. Not because there's not other tips, but the one that just sticks out is whatever you're doing. And I think the reason why this tip goes above everything is regardless of what sector you're in, consistency. I think it's one of them where it gets echoed and shouted about the most by everybody. But once you are in a rhythm of whatever you're doing and, you know, achieving whatever goal you want to achieve without consistency, it's not gonna work out unless you are literally in the 0.000000001%. So yeah, consistency, regular content, just for multiple reasons, not even just the simple reason of, you know, if you're a viewer, you'd want somebody to be releasing content regularly so you can keep watching the person, but it would be more just for algorithm perspective, just many reasons. So consistency in whatever you're doing content wise, is whether you're a streamer or a YouTuber, I think is the key to anything.
All right, I was going to ask 3 key things you'd give like say would be a message to someone who's just starting out, or what people should take away from today. I'm assuming one's going to be consistency. Is there 2 other things that you'd want people to take away from this?
For what topic? In terms of to be a professional gamer, or
maybe professional gamer, public speaking, anything we've discussed as a whole. The consistency thing, I think, as you said, stands for anything. If you want to be a writer or a poet, you've got to be consistent in writing and writing poems.
Yeah, I mean, thinking bigger picture and just generally speaking, I think whatever you want to do, you should do. So the typical thing of, regardless of, I don't know, if you feel like others that are part of your circle or people you have to convince aren't a fan of the route you want to go down, but you are it is your passion to do whatever it is, regardless of, again, if your parents, maybe you're thinking, oh, I'm going to have to convince them this is like a unique route that I want to take and it's not going to go well. If you are genuinely super passionate about something that you're going to put a lot of effort in, regardless of whatever it is, it could be anything, just go down the path that you want to go down. So whatever you're passionate about and you know inside you're going to make effort. And I mean, a simple example would be, I remember when I was in school, I was not the best at doing my homework on time and stuff like that. So I wasn't the best academic student from a teacher's perspective, but I knew when this video game thing popped up, I knew as someone who is not putting effort in academically, I knew, and I should have, looking back, but I knew the gaming aspect, I was going to do that. So regardless of, oh God, I'm going to have to convince my parents about this, the one thing I knew is if they do give me the chance, I'm not going to be sloppy about it. I am going to put 110% effort in. So whatever you want to put effort in, regardless of what it is, make sure you do that.
All right, good advice. Good advice. Final question then. Where do you see esports in 5 years' time?
Ooh, FIFA or generally speaking?
I'd say you can say FIFA, or you can go generally if you have an opinion on both.
Generally, I'd say that's an interesting one. I'll be honest, I don't. In 5 years' time, the virus is sort of the coronavirus situation sort of, I think, stepped us back a little bit, but not just us. I think the whole world. So now thinking in 5 years, I'll probably go with the jump it's done. You know, looking back at the last 5 years, so 2015 to 2020 is ridiculous. I mean, FIFA, for example, wasn't an esport before 2017. So looking at what it was in 2015, I mean, I was competing in it, but it was definitely not a viable option to sacrifice, you know, going to university or whatever to become a professional FIFA player. And then looking at what happened in 2017, 18, 19, 20, I would assume we will edge closer as esports, generally speaking, to becoming more of a mainstream thing. I would assume that would be the super bigger picture goal. I think esports will become, I don't want to ever say it'll level up, it'll stand in level with sports, but I think it will take one more step. I think we're a couple steps below, and I think in 5 years we'll be very close, because as we go on, the new generations that are coming up and just, you know, the new kids, they're more interested for whatever reason in video games than ever before. So due to that, I think the popularity of esports is gonna rocket up.
All right, well, hope it does for you and for everyone involved in esports. Thank you so much, Tass. And very good chat, man. There's some great lessons in there. One I will definitely bang on about is consistency. Any kid of any age, just stay.
I am a victim to it, by the way. I am a victim to it. It's not one of them where I want to sit on some type of high horse and be like, do this, because I am literally a victim of it right now as we speak. So it's one of them where while I'm preaching it, I personally need to do it. So that kind of sums it up. And yeah, that one, I'm with you, mate. That's definitely the one, the most important one.
Tass, can I ask you a question? So we at London United are about giving grassroots gamers that opportunity and accessibility, try and give them a path to pro. And you know, you've alluded to how prolific gaming and esports has become, and particularly during the pandemic. And I think the stigma attached to gaming has certainly gone, and people like you have had very successful careers from it. But whereas maybe in the early days, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you set out, you probably were very focused on just training in front of your screen. I'm interested in the path that FaZe and the other organizations you've been with have put you on in respect of mental health and nutrition and personal fitness, because that's something that we try and distill down from a very early engagement with our community, that we don't want you sitting in your bottom for 23 hours a day. We want you to think about mental health and looking after your body and treating yourself as an athlete, because you guys are called athletes and that's what these guys aspire to. So is there anything that you can tell to us about that just before we finish?
Yeah, I think to your point of, you know, the mental health, the physical health, I personally, as someone, I mean, it's one of them, it gets stemmed into you. I mean, my parents, that was one of the things even they said at a very young age before it even became a thing, where it's not just necessarily they didn't want me to sit in front of the screen 20 hours a day, but it was more, they didn't want me to, turn into this unsociable potential person. That the stigma is that if you know, the more time you spend in front of a screen or on video games or whatever you're doing, it will affect real situations of your life. So the obvious one would be your social skills and stuff like that. So even from a super young age, before FaZe, even I was with them in 2018, that was something that my parents kind of made very, I feel like most parents should do that, where it becomes an obvious point where you can tell if your son or daughter is changing, depending on they've changed their routine and they're spending more time on video games. And my parents made that a kind of a big deal to not just mentally just be more sociable, etc., and not lose whatever social skills I had at the time, but also physically to, as you said, to be healthy, to kind of break the mold of the stigma that an esport or a gamer is. Especially, I mean, the stigma back in 2012, 2013, they're very early days. The stigma of anybody that played video games, well, first of all, was it's not a career. And then second of all was, when you're doing it, you're probably a bit of a weird person, socially speaking. So I think regardless of personally, the way esports has gone in the last, I'd say, couple years, that stigma, I'd say that stereotype, there's stereotypes in life about everything. That stereotype is still there, but I think the percentage is increasing where professional video gamers are, I think, to the normal person that isn't in the industry, a lot more normal than people think. And that is based on the culture is changing. Whereas maybe, I don't know, back in 2007, everyone that was spending 20 hours in front of a screen were the stereotype that people think video gamers are. But as the years have gone on, it's definitely evolved. And I think as years to go, it's going to evolve and evolve even more. And as for FaZe, FaZe Clan is probably the most, I don't look at them as a gaming organization personally. They have a hand in professional video games, very, very successful across the board of multiple titles in terms of their players. But they are, for me, I mean, it's not really a very professional term to use, but they're just a very cool brand. For me, they come across as a partner. I don't know, if I was personally the head of a brand or a company or anything, and I was going to partner with somebody in esports, I would partner with FaZe Clan ahead of everybody, just from the aspect of their morals from day one have always been to link video games with kind of real life, because these two, there was always a stigma that these two are kind of separate. There's real life and then there's like video games. And for me, FaZe Clan is I don't know how to really put it, but ahead of everybody from the aspect of they're trying to push the narrative that video games is not only not, a socially awkward thing, but it's a very cool thing. And also people that are involved in the industry are a lot more normal than you think. So FaZe Clan have been doing this for many, many years, and whichever players they have under their umbrella, whether they need help or not, they do force help upon even issues, for example, recently in society, like systemic issues, like systemic racism and stuff like that. There's multiple like conference calls with professionals about these topics and stuff like that. They go on behind the scenes, they don't really get spoken about. But yeah, they have a big hand in stuff like that. And that's really.
I would have described FaZe as a lifestyle brand, a media company, an entertainment.
Yeah, you said it a lot better than me. Lifestyle brand, there we go.
And that's essentially what we aspire to be. Use our platform to address the social issues that maybe don't get raised as much in public, where gaming can be a force for good. So, final question is, where can we expect to see you competing going forward?
Well, in FIFA, I mean, I always thought of myself as pretty good at Call of Duty, but unfortunately never professionally. But in FIFA this year, due to the virus, just like everything, I believe the majority of our tournaments are being played online. So I wouldn't say they're going on behind the scenes, but it's kind of harder to keep track of them because it's going on online. But just sort of follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram, and I always give updates of when I'm competing in a major or whatever is going on.
Will we see you in the Club World Cup?
Yes, actually, yes, you will see me in the Club World Cup. I don't know. I don't think I can say who I'm playing with yet because we haven't even announced it. But yeah, I'll be in the Club World Cup, and we have qualified the last 2 years and done pretty okay the last 2 years. So hopefully we make it again.
Maybe we will meet you there. Who knows? We are a registered team in the Club World Cup.
Okay. We might be in the same group then, potentially. Oh, I've disappeared again.
Okay. Well, look, I've got lots of other questions, but I'm going to stop recording because some of them probably aren't broadcast of you.
Yeah.
So I just want to say thank you very much, Tass from FaZe Clan, for joining the Yop Esports Champs Public Speaking Workshop, and thanks to Rambo for expertly hosting. And we'll make this available for all the participants. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers, Tass.
Cheers, mate.